Part of the crisis, or at least the confrontation that we're having right now in the country, is over the crucial issue of voting rights and voter suppression tactics that seem aimed quite specifically at African-American voters, other voters of color, poor voters, disabled voters, other people who can be cut off from the polls if the voter suppression legislation is written just the right way in order to accomplish that goal. What do you make right now, Sherilyn, about the sort of push me, pull you happening with corporate America, with business interests that are starting to speak out, including in this remarkable ad today in the New York Times and the Washington Post, starting to sort of find their voice as supporters of democracy and supporters of the right to vote, while simultaneously we're seeing things like the U.S. Chamber of Commerce lobby U.S. senators that they ought to vote against the most important voting rights bill that we've seen in a very long time.
You know, Rachel, I'm actually quite comfortable with this discomfort because what we are seeing is a real shakeup happening in corporate America. As I have been appearing and speaking with business leaders and business groups, I have been telling them that we are in a democracy moment. You know, there was one crisis that we could see on January 6th because it was filled with violence, because it was there on our TV screens, and we could all feel the sense of America slipping away from being a stable democracy. But I want to be clear that these voter suppression laws, that the one that passed in Georgia, that are being proposed in Texas, that just passed in Arkansas, modeled on Georgia, criminalizing giving food and water to people on line voting. In South Carolina, we just submitted testimony today in opposition to the South Carolina voter suppression bill. This is as much a threat to the integrity of our democracy as January 6th was. Because it's, as the Supreme Court has said, the right to vote is preservative of all rights. It is fundamental. And this state-by-state attack, we saw an attack on the Capitol on January 6th. Now we're seeing a state-by-state attack on voting. And it's going to require all of us to stand up and to speak powerfully for democratic principles, and that includes corporate America. They don't get to be bystanders. And this is a moment of reckoning in which corporate America is going to have to tell the rest of the country whether democracy is something that they are agnostic about, right? Whether it is not necessary to the business model of American corporations, or whether they believe that as citizens, and corporations, as you know, actually receive lots of rights as citizens by the United States Supreme Court. Well, if you are a citizen, you have an obligation to stand up for our democracy. And so I think the ads today, that was incredibly powerful. I do feel the need to point out that this shift, this seismic shift, this move, this destabilization, and this willingness of hundreds of corporations to speak up was led by Black business leaders, Black business executives who first spoke out in that ad, with 72 of them signing it in the New York Times several weeks ago. And they listened to the voices of grassroots and community activists and national civil rights organizations pushing back against what was happening in Georgia. This is what it's going to take if we're going to protect and save and strengthen our democracy. It's going to take people moving out of their comfort zone and being willing to stand up for the principles that should undergird any true democracy with integrity.
Sherilyn Ifill, the President and Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund. Sherilyn, it's always really good to see you. Thank you for joining us with so much going on right now in the news that hits your areas of expertise. It's really good to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.